The fluorescent lights in the labor and delivery room cast harsh shadows across Dr. Elena Martinez's face as another contraction gripped her body. 8 centimeters dilated, the nurse had said. Maybe 2 more hours until she'd meet her daughter. The daughter whose father was currently standing at the foot of her hospital bed with divorce papers in his hand. "Marcus, please," Elena gasped as the contraction subsided, her hand reaching instinctively for his. "Not now. Not like this." Marcus Martinez pulled his hand away, his jaw set in that stubborn line she'd come to know too well over their 3 years of marriage. At 34, he still had the sharp features and athletic build that had first attracted her when they'd met at a medical conference, but now those features seemed carved from ice. "The timing is unfortunate, I'll admit," he said, his voice carrying the same clinical detachment he used when discussing quarterly profits for his pharmaceutical sales company. "But Courtney and I have been planning this for months. We can't keep waiting just because you're having a baby." Courtney. The name landed like a slap. Elena had suspected for weeks, maybe months, but hearing her husband confirm it while she was in active labor felt surreal, like a nightmare her pain-fogged brain had conjured. "I'm having your baby," Elena managed, her voice cracking. "Your daughter, Marcus." "How can you sign the papers, Elena?" He set them on the rolling tray beside her bed, next to the untouched ice chips and the fetal monitor that showed their daughter's strong, steady heartbeat. "My attorney says if we file before the birth, the settlement will be cleaner. You'll get the house in Pasadena, spousal support for 2 years, and I'll pay child support according to California guidelines." Another contraction hit, this one stronger, stealing her breath and her ability to respond. Through the haze of pain, Elena watched Marcus check his phone, his fingers moving across the screen with casual ease while her body fought to bring his child into the world. The delivery room door opened and Dr. Patricia Chen entered, her experienced eyes taking in the scene with immediate understanding. "Mr. Martinez," she said coolly, "I'm going to have to ask you to either support your wife or leave. This is a medical environment, not a law office." "Ex-wife," Marcus corrected. "Or she will be, as soon as she signs those papers." Dr. Chen's expression hardened. "Get out. I have a right to be here from my child's birth. You have the right I grant you as the attending physician, and right now, I'm revoking it." Dr. Chen moved to the intercom. "Security to labor and delivery room 3, please." Marcus's face flushed with anger, but he gathered his papers with stiff dignity. "This is ridiculous, Elena. I'm trying to handle this maturely, and you're making it into a scene." "I'm in labor," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm literally giving birth to your child, and you're serving me with divorce papers. I'm not the one making a scene. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from, I love hearing from you." "Fine." Marcus moved toward the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "But Elena, just so you know, Courtney's pregnant too. 4 months. So if you're thinking this is some temporary midlife crisis, you're wrong. I'm building a real family with her. A family I actually want." The words hit harder than any contraction. Elena watched him leave, watched the door swing shut behind him, and felt something inside her chest crack open. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of believing she'd found her person, and he was walking out while machines beat the rhythm of their daughter's heartbeat. "Breathe, Elena," Dr. Chen said gently, checking the fetal monitor. "Just breathe through it. Baby's doing great, strong heartbeat, perfect positioning. Let's focus on bringing her safely into the world." But Elena couldn't focus on anything except the divorce papers lying on the tray, the legal dissolution of her marriage spelled out in Times New Roman font while her body prepared to push a human being into existence. She thought about her mother, dead 3 years from ovarian cancer. She thought about her father, gone since she was 12. She thought about being utterly alone in the world except for the tiny person about to make her entrance. "Dr. Martinez," the nurse said, checking her cervix. "You're at 9 centimeters now. It's moving fast. Fast. Everything was moving too fast." The contractions, the divorce, the complete destruction of everything she'd thought her life would be. Elena had planned this differently, Marcus holding her hand, coaching her through breathing, cutting the umbilical cord with tears in his eyes. Instead, she had Dr. Chen's professional compassion and the sympathetic looks of nurses who'd probably seen this exact scenario play out before. An hour later, Elena held her daughter for the first time. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, with a cap of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn brown like Marcus's. She was perfect, absolutely perfect, and the love that flooded through Elena felt almost painful in its intensity. "Have you chosen a name?" Dr. Chen asked softly. "Isabella," Elena whispered, touching her daughter's tiny fingers. "Isabella Rose Martinez." Not her married name of Martinez, technically. The divorce papers were still unsigned, sitting on the tray like a ticking bomb. But Elena knew she'd sign them eventually. What choice did she have? Marcus had made his decision, had probably made it months ago while she'd been growing his child, believing in their future together. The next morning, a woman arrived with a notary stamp and witnessed Elena's signature on the divorce papers while Isabella slept in the bassinet beside her hospital bed. It felt surreal, signing away her marriage while wearing a hospital gown, her body still aching from labor, her daughter barely 12 hours old. "I'm sorry," the notary said quietly, and Elena could see she meant it. "For what it's worth, I hope he lives to regret this." After she left, Elena was alone with Isabella and the crushing weight of single motherhood stretching endlessly ahead. She had her job as a hospital administrator, a good salary, the house in Pasadena that Marcus had agreed to sign over. She'd survive. She'd make it work. But the future she'd imagined, the family dinners, the shared parenting, the partnership, that was gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from her best friend Rachel, "Just heard. I'm coming to the hospital. Don't you dare tell me not to." But before Rachel could arrive, another visitor appeared. A man in an expensive suit carrying a leather briefcase, his silver hair immaculately styled, his face vaguely familiar in a way Elena couldn't quite place. "Dr. Martinez," he said from the doorway. "My name is Robert Hammond. I'm an attorney with Hammond and Associates. May I come in?" "I already signed the divorce papers," Elena said wearily. "If Marcus sent you to, I'm not here about your divorce." Robert entered, his movements careful and respectful. "I'm here about your grandmother, Carmen Rodriguez." Elena's heart stuttered. "My grandmother died 6 months ago." "Yes, I know. I'm the executor of her estate." Robert set his briefcase on the visitor's chair and pulled out a folder. "Dr. Martinez, did your grandmother ever discuss her financial situation with you?" "She lived in a small apartment in East LA. She cleaned houses. She raised me after my father died." Elena shifted Isabella carefully, suddenly wary. "What is this about?" Robert's expression softened. "Your grandmother didn't just clean houses, Dr. Martinez. She owned the company. Rodriguez Property Services, one of the largest commercial cleaning operations in Southern California. 75 buildings under contract, 300 employees, $42 million in annual revenue." The numbers didn't make sense. Elena stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for the reveal that this was some kind of scam. "That's impossible. My grandmother lives so simply. She drove a 20-year-old car. She bought groceries at the discount store. Because she was saving everything for you." Robert opened the folder, spreading documents across the rolling tray where divorce papers had sat just hours ago. Carmen Rodriguez was an incredibly shrewd businesswoman. She started with one apartment building, cleaning it herself. Over 40 years, she built an empire. And she left all of it to you. Elena looked down at the papers, seeing numbers that her exhausted brain couldn't quite process. Asset valuations. Property deeds. Business holdings. All bearing her name as the sole beneficiary. "How much?" she whispered. "The total estate value, including the business, real estate holdings, and investment portfolios, is approximately $1.2 billion. The room tilted. Elena gripped Isabella tighter, her knuckles white against the soft hospital blanket. That's not possible. People don't just have $1 billion and live in a one-bedroom apartment. Your grandmother did. Robert's smile was gentle. She lived simply by choice, Dr. Martinez. She wanted to make sure you understood the value of hard work, of building something meaningful. The letter she left explains everything. He handed Elena an envelope, cream-colored paper with her name written in her grandmother's careful handwriting. Elena's hands shook as she opened it. Mi querida nieta, if you're reading this, I am gone, and you have just learned that your abuela was not quite who you thought. I am sorry for the deception, but I needed you to grow up strong, to understand that wealth without character is meaningless. I built Rodriguez Property Services from nothing, cleaning office buildings at night while pregnant with your mother. I sacrificed much, but I saved more. Every dollar I made, I invested. Every property that came available, I bought. Every opportunity, I seized. I lived simply because I remembered what it was like to have nothing. I wanted you to remember too, to never take for granted what you have, to understand that money is a tool, not a measure of worth. But now you are a woman, strong and educated, with a good heart and a steady mind. You are ready to inherit what I built. Use it wisely, Majida. Use it to help others, to build something meaningful, to show the world what a Rodriguez woman can do. Te amo siempre, Abuela Carmen. Tears streamed down Elena's face, dripping onto the letter, smudging the ink. She thought about her grandmother working night shifts to put her through college, refusing Elena's offers to help pay for a nicer apartment, insisting she was fine, she had enough. All that time, Carmen had been sitting on a fortune worth over $1 billion. There's more, Robert said quietly. Your grandmother purchased a 38% stake in MedSource Pharmaceuticals 3 years ago. That's your husband's company. The world stopped spinning. Elena looked up sharply. What? She bought the shares through a holding company, so the ownership isn't publicly visible. But Rodriguez Holdings owns 38% of MedSource. Which means? Robert paused significantly. You're Marcus Martinez's largest shareholder. The irony was so perfect it almost made Elena laugh. Marcus, who'd just divorced her in a labor room to be with his pregnant mistress. Marcus, who'd told her she'd be fine with the house and some spousal support. Marcus, who had no idea his ex-wife could buy and sell his entire company without affecting her daily cash flow. Does he know? Elena asked. Not yet. But he will, as soon as Rodriguez Holdings exercises its right to a board seat. Which, according to your grandmother's instructions, should happen at next month's shareholder meeting. Robert's smile was sharp. Your grandmother was very specific about timing. She wanted you to have options, Dr. Martinez. She wanted you to have power. Elena looked down at Isabella, sleeping peacefully, unaware that her world had just shifted on its axis. This child would never want for anything. Would never struggle the way Elena had struggled, working 3 jobs through medical school. Would never feel powerless the way Elena had felt just hours ago, signing divorce papers in a hospital bed. I need time, Elena said. To process this. To understand what it means. Of course. Take all the time you need. Robert stood, leaving his business card on the tray. But Dr. Martinez, there is one time-sensitive matter. MedSource is currently negotiating a merger with a European pharmaceutical company. The deal would make your ex-husband very wealthy and give him complete control of the merged entity. Your grandmother's notes suggest she didn't trust his business practices. You might want to review the merger documents before the vote. After Robert left, Elena sat in the quiet hospital room, holding her sleeping daughter and trying to comprehend the magnitude of what had just happened. 24 hours ago, she'd been a hospital administrator with a failing marriage. Now she was a billionaire with the power to destroy the man who'd abandoned her in labor. Rachel burst through the door an hour later, her arms full of flowers and her eyes red from crying. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. Marcus is a complete. She stopped, taking in Elena's expression. What happened? You look different. I just inherited $1 billion, Elena said calmly. And I own 38% of Marcus's company. Rachel's flowers hit the floor with a soft thud. The house in Pasadena felt different when Elena brought Isabella home 3 days later. It was the same craftsman bungalow she'd loved when they'd bought it 2 years ago, the same built-in bookshelves and hardwood floors and updated kitchen. But now she knew Marcus had signed it over to her as part of the divorce settlement, thinking he was being generous, thinking he was giving her something valuable. The house was worth maybe $800,000. Elena could buy 100 of them and still have money left over for Isabella's college fund. She settled the baby in the nursery Marcus had never finished painting, the walls still primer white, the crib they'd bought together standing lonely in the corner. Rachel had stocked the fridge and left encouraging notes around the house, but the emptiness felt profound. This should have been Marcus's hand supporting her as she learned to navigate the stairs while sore from delivery. This should have been his voice marveling at Isabella's every sound and movement. Instead, Elena was alone. Wealthy beyond imagination, but alone. Her phone buzzed constantly, Robert Hammond sending documents to review, Rachel checking in every hour, her hospital colleagues expressing sympathy about the divorce. One message stood out, though. From Marcus. I'll come by on Sunday to meet Isabella. 10 a.m. work? Such casual cruelty, Elena thought. As if he hadn't been there for her birth. As if he hadn't served divorce papers during active labor. As if he could just schedule a meeting with his daughter like she was a client appointment. She typed back, fine. Don't be late. Then she opened the documents Robert had sent, forcing her exhausted brain to focus on merger agreements and shareholder rights and the financial intricacies of MedSource Pharmaceuticals. What she found made her blood run cold. Marcus had been systematically stripping value from the company, creating shell corporations to siphon off profits, inflating his compensation package, and positioning himself to cash out massively in the merger while leaving other shareholders with devalued stock. It was technically legal, barely, but ethically bankrupt. And it would cost the employees their jobs when the merged company streamlined operations. Elena thought about her grandmother, scrubbing floors at night to build something meaningful. Thought about the 300 employees at Rodriguez Property Services who'd sent flowers when Carmen died, who'd told stories about how she'd paid for their kids' quinceañeras and helped them through tough times. Marcus was using his company like a personal ATM, and hundreds of people would suffer when his schemes collapsed. What would you do, Abuela? Elena whispered, looking at the photo on her mantle. Carmen at 70, small and fierce, smiling in front of the Rodriguez Property Services office. The answer came clearly, in her grandmother's accented voice, Majida, you fight. You protect the people who can't protect themselves. You show him what a Rodriguez woman can do. Sunday arrived too quickly. Elena had barely slept, between Isabella's nighttime feedings and her racing thoughts about MedSource and Marcus and the future stretching ahead. She dressed carefully in yoga pants and a nursing-friendly top, deliberately casual, deliberately not trying to impress the man who'd rejected her at her most vulnerable. Marcus arrived at 10:03, wearing designer jeans and a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. He looked rested, relaxed, happy in a way that made Elena's chest ache with remembered loss. Elena, he said, his tone cordial, as if they were acquaintances catching up. How are you feeling? Like I gave birth 4 days ago, she replied, not moving from the doorway. Do you want to meet your daughter or not? Something flickered across his face, maybe guilt, maybe annoyance, but he nodded and followed her inside. Isabella was awake in her bouncer, her dark eyes tracking movement with newborn intensity. She's beautiful, Marcus said softly, and for a moment, Elena saw genuine emotion in his expression. She looks like my mother. She has your eyes. Elena picked up Isabella, cradling her protectively. And apparently your mother's nose. Marcus reached out, and Elena handed over the baby, watching him hold his daughter with careful, unpracticed movements. He was a stranger to Isabella, this man who'd helped create her. A visitor, not a father. I want to be in her life, Marcus said, not looking up from Isabella's face. I know things ended badly between us, but I want to be a good dad. Do you? The question came out sharper than Elena intended. Because good dads don't abandon their children before they're born. Good dads don't serve divorce papers during labor. Elena, I explained, you explained that Courtney's pregnant and you're building a real family with her. Elena's voice remained calm despite the fury building in her chest. Which implies Isabella isn't real. Isn't worthy. Isn't enough. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's not what I meant. But it's what you said. Elena took Isabella back, the baby fussing slightly at the transfer. And it's what you showed me, Marcus. When you chose to divorce me in a delivery room instead of waiting literally a few more hours for your daughter to be born. I thought it would be cleaner for who? Elena's voice rose, and Isabella started crying, her newborn wails filling the living room. Cleaner for you? Cleaner for Courtney? Because it definitely wasn't cleaner for me or for this baby you claimed to want in your life. Marcus stood, his expression hardening into the stubborn defensiveness she remembered from their worst arguments. I'm not going to apologize for choosing my own happiness, Elena. I'm not going to feel guilty for wanting a partner who actually wants the same things I want. And what did I want that was so different? You wanted simple. You wanted predictable. Marcus gestured around the modest house. You're happy here, in this neighborhood, in this life. But I want more. I want adventure and excitement and a woman who looks good at business dinners, who doesn't fall asleep at 9:30 every night because she's too exhausted from hospital meetings. The criticism landed like physical blows, each one highlighting Elena's perceived inadequacies. Too boring. Too tired. Too simple. Not enough. I see, Elena said quietly. Well, thank you for clarifying. I'll make sure to tell Isabella, when she's old enough to ask, that Daddy left because Mommy wasn't exciting enough. That's not fair. Elena laughed, the sound bitter. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling me you were unhappy instead of starting an affair. Fair would have been couples counseling instead of divorce papers. Fair would have been waiting until your daughter was born before blowing up our entire life. Marcus moved toward the door, his visit lasting all of 20 minutes. I'll have my attorney contact you about a custody schedule. I think every other weekend to start, then we can adjust as Isabella gets older. After he left, Elena sank onto the couch, holding her crying daughter and finally letting her own tears fall. She'd been strong through labor, through signing divorce papers, through bringing Isabella home alone. But seeing Marcus hold their baby, seeing him look at Isabella with what might have been love before walking out again, that broke something inside her. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Her phone rang. Robert Hammond's name on the display. Dr. Martinez, he said. I hope I'm not calling at a bad time. My ex-husband just met his daughter for the first time and left after 20 minutes, Elena said, wiping her eyes. So no, this is actually a great time for distraction. I've completed my review of the MedSource merger documents. Elena, this is worse than I initially thought. Marcus has structured the deal so he'll walk away with approximately $80 million while the company's employees will face massive layoffs. The European firm is planning to close the California offices entirely. Can we stop it? With your 38% stake, you have significant leverage. But there's something else you should know. Robert paused. I did some investigating into Marcus's finances. He's been living well beyond his means, taking on substantial debt to maintain his lifestyle. The merger payout is the only thing keeping him from potential bankruptcy. Elena processed this information, pieces clicking into place. Marcus's expensive clothes, the luxury cars, the talk about wanting more and better and newer. He'd been drowning in debt the entire time, hiding it behind confident smiles and accusations about Elena being too simple. What happens if the merger doesn't go through? Marcus will be forced to restructure, possibly sell assets, definitely scale back his lifestyle significantly. And Courtney. Robert's tone suggested he'd investigated her too. Let's just say her interest in Marcus seems closely correlated with his apparent wealth. A plan began forming in Elena's mind, built on her grandmother's foundation of protecting workers and punishing those who'd abused their power. Robert, I want to make a counteroffer to the European firm. Rodriguez Holdings will acquire the majority stake in MedSource instead. We'll keep the California offices open, maintain the current workforce, and install new management. That would require removing Marcus from his position as CEO. I know. Elena looked down at Isabella, now sleeping peacefully against her chest. My grandmother taught me that wealth carries responsibility. 300 families depend on MedSource for their livelihoods. I won't let Marcus destroy that for his personal profit. This will be very public, Elena. The business press will cover it extensively. Marcus will know you're behind it. Good, Elena said firmly. Let him know. Let him understand exactly who he divorced. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of late-night feedings, business calls, and the steep learning curve of new motherhood combined with corporate warfare. Elena hired a night nurse, not because she couldn't handle Isabella alone, but because she needed sleep to review financial documents and merger proposals with clear eyes. Rachel came by daily, bringing food and sanity and occasionally just holding Isabella while Elena showered or napped or cried about the life she'd lost. But alongside the grief, something new was growing. Strength. Purpose. The steel spine her grandmother had always insisted was there, buried under Elena's gentle nature. You're different, Rachel observed one afternoon, watching Elena navigate a conference call while nursing Isabella. Harder somehow. Not harder, Elena replied. Just finally understanding my own power. The MedSource board meeting was scheduled for a Friday in late September. Elena arranged for the night nurse to stay with Isabella, dressed in a tailored Armani suit she'd never owned before inheriting her grandmother's fortune, and drove to the downtown high-rise where Marcus had his corner office. Robert Hammond met her in the lobby, along with 2 attorneys from his firm and a financial analyst who'd prepared detailed presentations on Elena's counteroffer. Ready? Robert asked. Elena thought about Marcus serving her divorce papers in the delivery room. Thought about him calling Courtney his real family. Thought about the 300 employees he was planning to sacrifice for his own profit. I'm ready. The boardroom was everything she'd expected: mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Marcus sat at the head, flanked by his CFO and general counsel. He looked up when Elena entered, and she watched recognition dawn slowly, followed by confusion. Elena? What are you doing here? Mr. Martinez, Robert Hammond said smoothly, taking a seat across from Marcus. Allow me to introduce Elena Rodriguez, representing Rodriguez Holdings, MedSource's largest shareholder. The color drained from Marcus's face. Rodriguez Holdings. You're Carmen Rodriguez's granddaughter. I am, Elena said calmly, settling into her chair. And as the majority shareholder, I'm here to present an alternative to the European merger. For the next hour, Robert and his team laid out Elena's proposal. Rodriguez Holdings would acquire 60% of MedSource, providing capital for expansion while maintaining all current employees and facilities. Marcus would be offered a generous severance package and the opportunity to stay on as a consultant, or he could choose to sell his remaining shares and leave the company entirely. This is insane, Marcus said, his voice rising. You can't just waltz in here and take over my company. It's not your company, Elena replied. It's a publicly traded corporation where you happen to be the current CEO. But Rodriguez Holdings owns more shares than you do, Marcus. We have the votes to approve this acquisition with or without your support. I'll fight this. I'll sue. Robert smiled. On what grounds? We've reviewed every aspect of this proposal with corporate attorneys. It's completely legal and, frankly, far more generous than the European offer you were considering. Their plan involved closing the California offices and terminating 300 employees. Our plan protects those jobs. Marcus's general counsel was reviewing the documents, his expression growing increasingly grim. Marcus, they're right. This is legal. And if you fight it, they could present evidence to the board about the shell corporations and inflated compensation packages. The threat hung in the air, unspoken but clear. Elena had all the evidence of Marcus's financial mismanagement. She could destroy him completely if she chose. This offer was mercy, not weakness. How long have you known? Marcus asked Elena directly, his voice hollow. About your grandmother's money. I found out the day after I signed our divorce papers, Elena said. The day after you served them to me while I was in labor with your daughter. The other board members shifted uncomfortably, clearly hearing this detail for the first time. Several shot Marcus looks of profound disapproval. So this is revenge, Marcus said. You're doing this to punish me. I'm doing this to protect 300 families who would lose their jobs under your merger plan, Elena corrected. I'm doing this because my grandmother taught me that wealth carries responsibility. And yes, Marcus, there's some satisfaction in showing you exactly what you gave up when you thought I was just a simple woman who'd be grateful for a house and some child support. The vote was unanimous. Even Marcus's allies on the board recognized that fighting Elena's proposal would be futile and potentially expose them all to legal liability. Rodriguez Holdings became the majority shareholder of MedSource Pharmaceuticals, and Marcus Martinez was officially removed as CEO. You can stay on as a consultant, Elena offered as the board filed out. Transitional role, helping the new management understand the company's operations. 6 months, generous compensation. And if I refuse? Then you sell your remaining shares and move on. Elena stood, gathering her documents. But Marcus, Courtney is 4 months pregnant. You're about to have another child. Maybe it's time to think about financial stability instead of ego. She left him sitting at the boardroom table, surrounded by the wreckage of what he thought was his empire. In the elevator down, Robert turned to her with something like admiration. That was impressive, he said. Cold, but impressive. My grandmother always said the best revenge is success. Elena checked her phone, seeing a text from the night nurse that Isabella was sleeping peacefully. I just made sure 300 people keep their jobs. If Marcus's humiliation is a side effect, I can live with that. The business press coverage started that evening. Rodriguez Holdings acquires MedSource in surprise move. Pharmaceutical executive ousted by ex-wife's investment firm. Billion-dollar inheritance reshapes corporate landscape. Elena's phone exploded with calls, former colleagues from the hospital wanting to know if the rumors were true, distant relatives she hadn't heard from in years suddenly very interested in reconnecting, reporters wanting interviews about the mysterious Rodriguez heir who'd appeared from nowhere. She ignored most of them, focusing instead on the one call that mattered. Marcus, at 11 p.m., his voice raw. How long are you going to punish me? He asked. I'm not punishing you, Elena said, rocking Isabella who'd woken for her nighttime feeding. I'm running a business, protecting employees, and doing what my grandmother trusted me to do with her legacy. You took my company. I prevented you from destroying it for personal profit. Elena adjusted Isabella's position, the baby's small sounds of contentment filling the quiet house. Marcus, you made your choices. You chose Courtney over me. You chose to serve me divorce papers in a delivery room. You chose to structure a merger that would devastate hundreds of families. These are the consequences. I have a baby on the way. I need income. The audacity nearly made Elena laugh. You have 2 babies, Marcus. Or did you forget about Isabella and all this? Silence on his end, heavy with guilt he'd probably never acknowledge. The consulting position is still available, Elena continued. 6 months, $200,000. It's more than generous considering what you were planning to do. And after 6 months? After 6 months, you figure out your next move. Start another company. Get a different job. Sell the luxury cars and the penthouse and live within your means. Elena's voice softened slightly. Be a father to your daughters, Marcus. Both of them. That's worth more than any CEO title. She hung up before he could respond, before he could make her doubt her decisions or feel guilty for his situation. Marcus had created this mess through his own arrogance and greed. Elena was simply refusing to let him drag others down with him. 3 months passed. Elena settled into a rhythm of motherhood and corporate leadership that would have seemed impossible before Isabella's birth. She hired a nanny so she could attend board meetings and site visits to Rodriguez Property Services. She learned her grandmother's business from the ground up, meeting the employees Carmen had cherished, understanding the systems and relationships that made the empire work. MedSource flourished under new management. The California offices expanded, creating 200 new jobs. The European merger was forgotten, replaced by strategic partnerships that benefited everyone involved. Marcus completed his consulting contract and took a position at a smaller pharmaceutical company, his lifestyle dramatically downsized but stable. Courtney gave birth to a baby boy in December. Marcus's Instagram, which Elena occasionally checked in moments of masochistic curiosity, showed a steady stream of photos. Marcus with his son. Marcus and Courtney at modest restaurants instead of 5-star establishments. Marcus looking tired but genuine in a way he never had during their marriage. Do you regret it? Rachel asked one evening, watching Elena review spreadsheets while Isabella played on a blanket nearby. Taking his company? I didn't take his company, Elena corrected. I saved it from his mismanagement. There's a difference. But do you regret being the one who had to do it? The one who had to be the bad guy? Elena looked at her daughter, 8 months old now, pulling herself up on furniture and babbling constant streams of consciousness. Isabella would grow up knowing her mother was strong enough to protect herself and others. Would understand that power came with responsibility. No, Elena said finally. I don't regret it. My grandmother built something meaningful, and she trusted me to continue that legacy. If Marcus got hurt in the process, that's unfortunate. But hundreds of families kept their jobs. That matters more. The custody arrangement settled into a predictable pattern. Marcus took Isabella every other weekend, and despite Elena's lingering anger, he did seem to try with his daughter. The visits were awkward, filled with his attempts to bond with a baby who didn't quite recognize him as a constant presence. But he showed up, which was more than Elena had expected. Courtney never came to the handoffs. Elena suspected Marcus kept his two families carefully separated, afraid of comparisons or questions or the uncomfortable truth that he destroyed one family to create another. On Isabella's first birthday, Elena threw a party at the Pasadena house. Rachel and her hospital friends came, along with employees from Rodriguez Property Services who'd known Carmen. Robert Hammond attended with his wife, bringing an elaborate play structure that would take Isabella years to fully appreciate. Marcus was invited, of course. He arrived alone, carrying an expensive gift that demonstrated he still didn't quite understand his daughter's developmental stage. Isabella toddled over to him with determination, grabbing his legs and looking up with Marcus's own dark eyes. Hey, baby girl, he said softly, picking her up. Happy birthday. Elena watched them from across the room, feeling the complicated swirl of emotions that characterized all her interactions with Marcus. She'd loved this man once. Had believed in their future together. Had created a beautiful daughter with him. But she'd also learned that love wasn't enough when fundamental values diverged. That forgiveness didn't require forgetting. That strength sometimes meant protecting yourself from people who'd proven they'd hurt you. Elena, Marcus said, approaching with Isabella on his hip. The house looks great. You've done some renovations. New kitchen, Elena replied, nodding toward the expanded space. Isabella needed more room to spread her chaos. It's nice. Marcus hesitated, clearly wanting to say more. Look, I know things have been complicated between us. But I want you to know I'm grateful you're such a good mother to Isabella. She's lucky to have you. The compliment landed strangely, both genuine and insufficient. She deserves 2 good parents, Marcus. I'm trying. He shifted Isabella, who was reaching for the birthday cake. Courtney and it's not what I expected, honestly. Having a baby is hard. Harder than I realized. Elena couldn't help the sharp laugh that escaped. Yes, Marcus. It is. Especially when you do it alone because your partner serves you divorce papers during labor. I deserve that. He had the grace to look ashamed. I handled everything wrong. The timing, the way I told you, all of it. I was selfish and cruel, and you didn't deserve any of it. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was closer than Elena expected. Thank you for saying that. And the business stuff, taking over MedSource, I get it now. You were protecting people. My plan would have destroyed a lot of lives. Marcus met her eyes directly. Carmen would be proud of you. The words hit harder than Elena anticipated, bringing tears she quickly blinked away. I hope so. I'm trying to honor what she built. You're doing more than honoring it. You're expanding it. Marcus handed Isabella to her mother as the baby began fussing. I saw the Rodriguez Properties announcement about the new affordable housing initiative. That's going to change a lot of lives. That's the goal. Elena settled Isabella on her hip, the familiar weight grounding her. Money's just numbers unless you use it for something meaningful. The party continued around them, friends and family celebrating Isabella's first year of life. Elena watched her daughter smash cake across her face, saw Marcus laugh at the mess, felt Rachel squeeze her shoulder in solidarity. This life she'd built from the wreckage of her divorce, it wasn't what she'd planned, but it was good. Solid. Real. Later, after everyone had left and Isabella was asleep in her crib, Elena sat in her grandmother's old rocking chair and thought about the past year. She'd been divorced in a labor room, had discovered $1 billion inheritance, had taken over a company from her ex-husband, had become a mother and a CEO and a guardian of Carmen's legacy. The woman who'd signed divorce papers while in active labor felt like a different person now. Weaker, more uncertain, willing to accept crumbs of affection from a man who'd never truly valued her. This Elena, the one who'd stood up in a boardroom and reclaimed her power, who'd protected 300 families from corporate greed, who'd shown Marcus exactly what he'd lost, this Elena was who she was always meant to become. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, "Thank you for including me today. Isabella is lucky to have you as her mom. We both are." Elena read it twice, then set the phone aside without responding. Some sentiments didn't require acknowledgement. Some truths were better left to echo in the silence. Outside her window, Pasadena stretched in comfortable suburban sprawl, the same neighborhood Marcus had dismissed as too simple, too boring. But Elena loved this house, this life, this version of herself she'd fought so hard to become. She thought about her grandmother, scrubbing floors to build an empire, living simply while sitting on a fortune, teaching Elena through example that true worth had nothing to do with external validation. "I hope I'm making you proud, Abuela," Elena whispered to the darkness. "I hope you're watching Isabella grow up strong, watching me protect what you built, watching me become the woman you always knew I could be." And somewhere, in whatever space held the spirits of fierce Latina businesswomen who'd shaped the world through sheer determination, Elena imagined Carmen Rodriguez smiling. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.